In the previous sections, we have learned composition and framing, where you know how to frame a subject, how to frame a shot to make it look prettier. And to take your shots to the next level, now is the time to introduce some movements in the shots. And in this section, I'm going to show you a variety of camera movements that has been used in films since ages. So let's get started. The first movement is pan. So pan is literally panning from left to right or right to left. So you're just holding your camera and then you're just moving left to right and right to left. And pan is usually used to give viewers more information about what is not just in the static frame but also what is in the surrounding areas. It's a really basic movement, and a lot of mistakes what beginners do is that they pan really quickly, and because of that the viewers don't get enough time to consume everything what was in the picture. So whenever you're panning, just go really slow, as if your camera is on a mount on a machine and it's going with a really steady pace. And also, yeah, steady pace is also really important when you're doing any movement. So it's not that you are panning really fast in the beginning and then you make it slow. Pan usually gives a lot of information to viewers about what is in the horizontal frame. And to get more information about what is in the vertical frame, we use a movement called tilt. So tilt literally looks like this, where you're moving the camera from downward angle all the way to up. And the same thing, you have to go really slow and keep the speed steady. So that was tilt. These two are really basic movements, but they have been used in almost all the movies. And now we move on to another movement, which is one of my favorite, the push-in shots. In push-in, you are sort of moving closely towards the subject. And why is push-in so important is because push-in allows the audience to know what they have to focus on. Push-in allows the audience to sort of get into the story. And this is how you should take a push-in shot. So here I'm just holding the camera and I'm walking really slow towards the subject. And while I'm walking slow towards the subject, I am keeping my feet really firm. I'm doing that famous ninja walk so that there's not any jitters in the video. And one thing you should be keeping in mind while doing a push-in shot is the footage looks extremely pretty when you are first of all using a wide angle lens, and second thing, as you're pushing in, you see in the sides of the frame that some of the foreground is also going out of the frame. So it gives that 3D dynamic look in the video. If you just push in a normal plane, it looks okay. But if you push in when there are surrounding things and they're passing along the frame, that looks more creative. After the push in, we have push out shot. So push out shot we usually use when we are sort of moving out of one scene to the another. So push out shot, it kind of gives the audience information that, okay, the subject was important until now, and now as we are moving back, you're kind of introducing more of the surroundings around the subject. So now the subject is not that important, now we are sort of getting out of the frame, and you have to keep the same things in mind what you did in push in. Walk steady, keep the shot steady, and always use something in foreground. So now everything what is around us is kind of creeping in the frame, and that gives a really good look. And the next movement would be pushing with a tilt up. So this is how you can take this shot. So the first step is at position A, your camera is facing downwards, and as you're walking really slowly, you're moving your camera a little bit up. And why this shot is super creative is because here you are moving in towards the subject, but you're not showing the audience the subject already in the beginning. The floor or the ground is in the frame in the beginning, and now you're sort of building a curiosity within the audience that, oh, what's coming, what's coming, what's coming, and then at a point they see the subject. Here we're going to do push in with pan down. So a lot of times we are sort of facing the sky, and then we are sort of bringing the camera down to again bring the same sort of curiosity what we did when we were doing pan up. So here at position A, my camera is facing towards the sky, and as I'm moving close to the subject, my camera comes to the subject. The next shot is parallax shot. Here what we do is we keep the subject in the center and we hold the camera like this, and then we are sort of circling around the subject. And this effect gives this really crazy dynamic look where the subject almost stays at its own place, but you see the background revolving around the subject. And if you're a beginner, this movement might take a little bit of practice to master. The next shot is the slider shot. So usually in movies they use this slider and they are sort of moving left to right or right to left, but we don't have that big of a budget, we don't have that much luxury, so we become the slider ourselves. So in this shot you're moving from left to right or right to left, and to make this shot more effective you can keep something in the foreground like this. And now I have the foreground of the frame. I am just moving my body slightly left to right, and that kind of gives a reveal shot to the audience. So here the subject was initially covered behind the leaves, and now as I'm moving from right to left, the subject is being revealed to the audience, and the leaves in the foreground, they add a bit of depth in the video. I use these shots all the time for doesn't matter what video it is. This is like the most common shot what I use, and the coolest part is you don't really have to move too much to get the effect and get the story told to the audience. So these were some basic movements you can practice with your iPhone. But the only thing to keep in mind is that whatever shot you are taking, if you have to walk in case of push in or push out, you have to do that ninja walk. You have to walk extremely slow, because a lot of times when we are filming, everything looks really steady in our phone, but as we are sort of importing the things in the computer, then you see, oh, there was a lot of jitters and all this sort of stuff. That's why you have to be really careful with your firm feet. And the next thing is that whatever movement you're doing, make sure to do those movements for at least 5 to 6 seconds, because as we are pressing the record, the first second is a little bit jittery, and then as we are turning off the record, the last second would be also a little bit jittery, and the in between material, that's the material you would be using for the videos. So that's why it's really important to film whatever shot you're doing, whatever flow you are in, film it for at least 5 to 6 seconds. And one more tip, doing these shots in slow motion, which means you have to increase the frame rates per second. I would recommend to go for 60 frames per second, so that when you slow down these shots, whatever jitter movements were there, they could be eliminated. So yeah, 3 things you need to keep in mind. Firm feet, film for 5 to 6 seconds, and film in slow motion. Now that we have learned different movements, it's homework time. So now your job is to go out there and film different movements. And whatever movements I've taught, whether it's pan, tilt, push in, push out, parallax, everything, you have to film 3 shots of each movement and share with me. And if you have any questions while you're filming, ask me a question. So let's get started.